Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the most unbelievable, whiplash-inducing stories in the entire history of English football. We're going to explore the 2013 FA Cup Final, a match that delivered a narrative so shocking it honestly feels like it was written for a Hollywood movie.
Okay, let's dive into this. Think about this for a second. Can a team scale the absolute highest mountain in English football, hoist the most historic knockout trophy in the world, and then suffer the ultimate failure in the sport, all within a matter of days? It sounds literally impossible, right? Well, that is exactly what happened here.
Section 1. A David versus Goliath final.
Picture this. On one side, you've got Manchester City, sitting comfortably in second place in the Premier League. Five-time FA Cup winners, packed with a wealthy, star-studded roster. I mean, they were the overwhelming favorites, for sure. And then, you've got Wigan Athletic, languishing down in 18th place, a massive 40 points behind City, just desperately fighting off relegation. These guys were the ultimate scrappy underdogs. Since they were founded in 1932, they had never even seen an FA Cup final.
So, the crucial point to remember here is that history totally favored City. They'd already beaten Wigan in both regular season games that year, 2-0 and 1-0. Actually, they'd won their last 7 Premier League matchups against them. And in the FA Cup, they'd played twice before, back in '71 and 2006. And yep, City won both of those 1-0 too. So, statistically speaking, a Wigan victory felt pretty much impossible.
Section 2. The Road to Wembley. Now, what's really interesting is how completely different their journeys to the final were. City just breezed through. They completely thrashed top-tier teams like Leeds 4-0, destroyed Barnsley 5-0, and even knocked out the defending champs, Chelsea, in the semis. But Wigan? Man, their route was an absolute grind. They literally needed a replay just to scrape past a lower league side, Bournemouth, in the third round. They battled through snow against non-league Macclesfield Town and had to scrap past Huddersfield and Millwall just to survive and make it to Wembley.
And that brings us to the grand stage. 86,254. That's how many fans were absolutely packed into Wembley Stadium. You can imagine the atmosphere was electric. But it was also weirdly tense, mostly because the FA scheduled a controversial 5:15 p.m. kickoff. That was a big departure from the traditional 3 p.m. start, and it actually had fans from both of these Northwest clubs pretty stressed about navigating trains home late at night.
But the tension wasn't just in the stands. Right before the whistle blew, the media dropped an absolute bombshell. Rumors started swirling like wildfire that City's manager, Roberto Martínez, was about to get the sack, supposedly being replaced by Manuel Pellegrini for failing to defend their league title. Talk about dramatic irony, right? Here's the massive, heavily favored giant dealing with all this crazy internal instability right before the biggest domestic cup match of their season. Section 3. The 91st minute.
So the game starts, and incredibly, the massive underdogs hold their ground. The first half turns into this grueling 0-0 stalemate. Now, City definitely had their chances. Carlos Tevez and Samir Nasri fired off shots, but debutant goalkeeper Joel Robles came up huge, and Yaya Toure was pushing them really hard. But Wigan was just so incredibly resilient. Callum McManaman kept making these really dangerous runs down the right side, constantly testing City's defense. You could just feel the Giants getting completely frustrated.
Let's move into the second half, where the tension just explodes. At the 60-minute mark, City's Pablo Zabaleta takes a yellow card for a professional foul on McManaman. The pressure keeps building. Then, in the 84th minute, total disaster for City. Zabaleta brings down McManaman again, gets a second yellow, and boom, he's sent off with a red card. He actually became only the 3rd player ever to get sent off in an FA Cup final. So now, City is down to 10 men. And then, the 91st minute hits.
1 minute into injury time, Wigan wins a corner. Sean Maloney plays the ball in, and substitute Ben Watson, who, by the way, had only been on the pitch for about 10 minutes, leaps up and completely outjumps City's Jack Rodwell at the near post. Watson heads the ball perfectly over Joe Hart and right into the far corner of the net. 1-0 Wigan. Just 3 minutes later, the final whistle blows. Against all odds, they actually did it.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer disbelief of the moment. Sporting Life called it the biggest FA Cup final shock since Wimbledon's defeat of Liverpool in 1988. Everybody from Fox Sports to BBC Sport echoed that, calling it one of the absolute greatest Cinderella runs and biggest giant killings in the history of the competition. Forbes even ranked it as the 10th biggest surprise result in FA Cup history. The ultimate underdogs had just conquered Wembley.
Section 4. A bittersweet aftermath.
Now, normally you'd expect a story like this to end with a massive open-top bus parade, right? Well, the next 72 hours delivered absolute whiplash. Check this out. May 11th, Wigan's captains lift the FA Cup in ultimate triumph. May 13th, those pre-match rumors turn out to be true, and Manchester City officially sacks Roberto Mancini. But then, the real heartbreak hits on May 14th. Just 3 days after their immortal victory, Wigan Athletic loses 4-1 to Arsenal in the Premier League, and because they were sitting in 18th place, that one loss seals their fate. They are officially relegated to the Championship.
Which brings us to this incredible, completely bizarre historical paradox. Wigan Athletic became the first club in the entire history of English football to win the FA Cup and get relegated from the top tier in the exact same season. Think about how wild that is. Because they won the cup, they actually qualified for the Europa League group stage, but they wouldn't even be playing in England's top league the next year. It is literally a permanent anomaly in sports history. So, we'll wrap up this explainer by circling back to our opening thought. Is a historic, immortal trophy, a moment of pure, undeniable magic that will be talked about for a century, worth the devastating price of relegation and falling out of the top flight? For Wigan fans, those 72 hours were the literal definition of the highest highs and the lowest lows. It's a bittersweet legacy that leaves us all wondering, if you had the choice for your own team, would you take the trade? Thanks so much for exploring this remarkable piece of football history with me.